Joined by Alex Newman today, our international correspondent. Alex, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Duke. Great to be with you.
Well, it seems that parents in this country, even pre-COVID, even when things were calm and placid, there weren't lunatics in the street burning things down, they always wait until after the 4th of July to get serious about what's going on with their kids' schooling in the fall. So we would have expected after the 4th of July holiday that a lot of parents being very concerned about whether or not their public schools are going to open, whether or not the teachers are going to show up, what kind of protocols these young kids are going to have to go through, to the surprise of really nobody. Looks like that this mass exodus to homeschooling like we predicted about a month and a half ago is beginning to materialize. Talk about what's going on in your latest story in North Carolina with regards to homeschooling.
Yeah, thank you, Duke. So what happened in North Carolina was really interesting. Their government website actually got overloaded, the one where you file, they call it a notice of intent to establish a homeschool, I think is how they refer to it in North Carolina. So basically, when you want to start homeschooling, you send the government a letter, and the place to get that form actually had so many requests that they had to shut it down. It got overloaded and crashed, and they put a note up there saying, sorry, there's too much volume of requests right now, so please check back later. We're trying to get this back up and running as soon as possible. So that's one of many, many signs and symptoms we're seeing across the country. I also talked about Texas, where some of the school districts in the Houston area were doing surveys of families. And what they found was in a lot of these districts, fully half of the families are not planning to send their children back when schools reopen in the fall. So, there's going to be a catastrophe for the public education system. They're scrambling now, trying to get, everybody laptops so that they can all keep them plugged into the government machinery. But a lot of these families are just going to pull their kids out and do regular old homeschooling, free of government interference. So this is a very, very good sign, Duke.
Well, you and I have both dealt with public schools long enough to know that you can't take them at face value. What do you think the odds are that in North Carolina, they did really run out of bandwidth, or they just shut the machine off because they didn't want to issue more permits for parents to homeschool their kids?
That's entirely possible, Duke. And, we did an article at FreedomProject for the Newman Report not too long ago about government bureaucrats in multiple states trying to keep the children trapped in the school. So they were saying, oh, you can't withdraw during COVID, or, oh, sorry, we're not processing a notice of intent to file for homeschool right now, coming up with all kinds of excuses for why families could not cut the ties with the government indoctrination system. And that may well be what we're seeing here, because, they recognize every butt in a chair means more state funding, means more federal funding per student. And so, as they see families fleeing from the system, they're saying, oh my goodness. And even here in the county where I live, actually, we got, for the first time ever, these postcards from the school district saying, oh, please join, the government virtual school thing. It'll be kind of like homeschooling, and we'll give you a free laptop. And, I don't know how many homeschool families took the cheese in the mousetrap, but we shall see. So
it's like those old game shows where you used to get parting gifts. Maybe all of these homeschool moms ought to send rice-a-roni to the public schools and say, here's your parting gift, we're out of here. And there's really good reason to do so. I mean, look what's happening in New York. New York's began their online summer program. 36% of kids haven't even bothered to sign in, and it's a month into it. So the kids aren't going to school. How about what's happening in Los Angeles? This is the one that gets me. The teachers' unions in Los Angeles, one of the lowest performing cities in the entire country, they can't educate anybody. The teachers' unions have now come out and said, well, we'll teach in the fall if you defund the police in Los Angeles and if you stop funding charter schools. So in other words, we union teachers will show up and do our jobs if you defund all the police and you kill all of our competition.
It's so typical of what we see with the government education monopoly, Duke. And you and I have a mutual friend, Rebecca Friedrichs, who fought these people all the way up to the Supreme Court and won. But the unions are a huge part of the problem. It's this whole system. It's like a hydra, with the unions are one tentacle, and the education establishment, and then all the people profiting, all the crony capitalists selling a bunch of garbage to the schools and new textbooks filled with garbage. And it's this huge $1 trillion industry, and they're not going to go quietly. I mean, they're not going to go out without a fight, realizing that all their victims are escaping through their clutches. That means all their money is going to be escaping through their clutches. And so I think they're in panic mode right now. They're frantically trying to come up with anything and everything to keep these kids stuck there. But I don't think it's going to work.
Well, after what we've seen, this American public school system is driven by the money and the comfort level of teachers and professional educrats, not about kids. They failed to educate for decades now, and there have been no consequences. The consequences are here. After the break, let's talk about some opportunities for parents to get their kids out. All right, back again with Alex Newman, our international correspondent. And we've been talking about the exodus that is apparently going on away from public school and towards homeschooling. Talked about what's going on in North Carolina, where the server broke because there was so much interest in possibly pulling their kids out. We've talked about the fecklessness of these schools, these public schools, that have done a lousy job of educating your kids for at least 3 decades, and they never seem to feel any consequences. Well, the consequences may be upon them finally. We have an organization that we have recently just christened. You and I are 2 of the 4 founding members, Alex. It's called Public School Exit. Talk briefly about the other 2 members and talk briefly about the mission of Public School Exit.
So yeah, it's you and I, and then the other 2 members, wonderful, wonderful people, is Lieutenant Colonel E. Ray Moore, who we actually did a whole interview with for the special report we did on rescuing our children that you and I collaborated on. He's kind of one of the founding fathers of this movement, really. Back over 20 years ago, he figured out that the schools could not be reformed. They were just a disaster. So he said, we got to get the kids out, especially, he's a Christian, he's a pastor, so he focused on getting the Christian children out of the public schools. But he recognizes that it's not just Christian children who need a proper education. Everybody does. And so, we're kind of broadening this now, trying to get all children out of the school system. The other is Dran Reese, the founder of the Salt and Light Council, amazing woman. Really one of the kind of the doers, right, who actually gets things done. So the goal of the organization is, as the name implies, to get as many children to exit the public schools as possible. So we're providing resources, information, ideas, instructions, different options people can look at. So a lot's happening now. I mean, the organization hasn't been online for all that long, but we're already seeing a huge amount of interest. Now we're doing weekly seminars to try to help parents make the right decision. Once they've made the right decision, to help kind of shepherd them into the homeschool community or into the private school community outside of government control. It's a lot of work, but it's incredibly important. In fact, I can't think of very many things more important than liberating as many children as possible from this harmful indoctrination and sexualization.
Tell parents where they can go to view the website and maybe support the cause.
Yeah, that's at publicschoolexit.com. If you go there, you'll see all the buttons. If you want to know legal status in your state, if you want to help fund getting a student out of public schools, all the different things you could want, reasons why you might want to get your children out of public schools, you can send that to your neighbor or your son or daughter who's got your grandchildren at home. Lots of stuff there, and that's publicschoolexit.com.
And here at Freedom Project, we are an online school where we do all the education with live teachers. We bring it right into your living room. No drugs, no sexual education, no school shooters. And we're enrolling for the next 2.5 weeks, 2 to 2.5 weeks. So if you're thinking about getting your kids into a school online that is a really good school, or you want some help with homeschooling, check out Freedom Project for the next couple weeks. And the thing about us is that we too are experiencing it's just a huge number. We can't even keep up with the placement exams. They're coming in so fast. So parents are beginning to do the right thing. And we've heard from a lot of public school parents that, look, if we're going to send our kids to online schools in the fall because of COVID, we'd rather have you do it, who are professional online educators, than to have these public schools that are completely clueless about how to do this, teachers who are unwilling to do it, all the other junk. We saw last week, we talked about how in California, they can't get kids to sign up. They can't get kids to go online. The online public school system is failing in Los Angeles, and yet they're still demanding, the state's mandating, that you still have to teach kids the radical sexual politics, right? So at Freedom Project, and you've been part of Freedom Project for a long time now, we've been doing this successfully, and so if you have a chance, take a look at what we're doing.
Yeah, Freedom Project is an amazing school. In fact, I think I was the first teacher hired by Freedom Project. So it's great to still be with this school. Amazing students, amazing teachers, amazing programs. So for parents who are looking for some support, who don't want to do all the homeschooling themselves, but who don't want their children to be indoctrinated and sexualized and dumbed down and taught to hate America, as President Trump quite correctly pointed out in his recent speech at Mount Rushmore, Freedom Project is an amazing option. I highly recommend that people go check it out. Obviously, fpeusa.org, Freedom Project Media, what we're on right now. It's, of course, an affiliate of the Freedom Project Academy. Great option for parents. who want some help educating their children, really with godly values, with godly instruction, and also with legitimate education, with phonics and real history and real science. I mean, that's what people need, and Freedom Project is a great place to get it.
Hey, Mom and Dad, how would you like to have your kid be a high school kid with Freedom Project and have Alex Newman as their advanced economics teacher? That right there is worth the price of admission.